Welcome back, Night Wanderers. Before we dive into tonight's story, take a moment to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Tonight's tale might make you think twice about who you're really talking to in those late-night video chats. I never thought I'd be the type of person to spend hours on Omegal, but after my girlfriend Sarah broke up with me 3 months ago, loneliness became this crushing weight I couldn't shake. The apartment felt too quiet, too empty, and sleep seemed impossible most nights. So there I was, sitting in my dimly lit bedroom at 2 a.m. clicking new chat over and over again, hoping to find someone, anyone, who might help fill the void. Most conversations lasted maybe 30 seconds before someone would skip or disconnect. Dick pics, bots, creepy old men, the usual Omegal garbage. But then around 3:17 a.m., I connected with someone different. The video window showed a girl who looked to be in her early 20s, with long dark hair partially covering her face. She was sitting in what appeared to be a bedroom, lit only by the blue glow of her screen. Something about the lighting seemed off, but I couldn't put my finger on what exactly. "Hi," I typed in the chat box. She smiled. At least, I think she smiled. The video quality was grainy, pixelated in a way that made it hard to make out her features clearly. "Hello, Alex," she typed back. My blood went cold. I hadn't told her my name. Hell, I hadn't even spoken yet. We were still in text-only mode. I quickly checked my Omegal settings, wondering if somehow my real name was displayed, but everything showed I was listed as stranger. "How do you know my name?" I typed. "Lucky guess," came her response, followed by what I could swear was a giggle, though the audio was choppy and distorted. I should have disconnected right then. Every instinct told me to click that red X and find someone else to talk to. But curiosity got the better of me, and honestly, after months of failed connections, having someone actually engage felt too good to give up. "What's your name?" I asked. "Emma," she replied. "I've been waiting for you." The way she phrased it sent chills down my spine. "Waiting for me?" "You've been online for hours, Alex. Same time every night. I've seen you." I frantically tried to remember if I'd talked to her before, but I was certain this was our first conversation. Her face, obscured as it was by the poor video quality and shadows, didn't look familiar. Yet something about her presence felt oddly recognizable, like a half-remembered dream. "I think you have me confused with someone else," I typed, but she was already responding. "Third-floor apartment on Maple Street. You have a Spider-Man poster above your bed and a coffee mug on your nightstand that says world's okayest employee." My hands froze over the keyboard. She was right about everything. I slowly turned to look at my nightstand. There was the mug, a gag gift from my coworkers last Christmas. The Spider-Man poster hung directly above my headboard, exactly where she'd said. "This isn't funny," I typed. "How do you know where I live?" But Emma wasn't done. "You work at the Barnes & Noble on 5th Street, Tuesday through Saturday, usually the evening shift. You drive a blue Honda Civic with a dent in the rear bumper from when you backed into that shopping cart 3 weeks ago." Every detail was accurate. The shopping cart incident had happened in my apartment complex's parking lot. No witnesses, no police report. I'd been too embarrassed to tell anyone about it. "Who are you?" I demanded. "I told you. I'm Emma." Her response came immediately, as if she'd been waiting for the question. "And I think it's time we met in person." I slammed my laptop shut and stumbled backwards, heart pounding. This had to be some kind of elaborate prank or scam, but how could anyone possibly know such specific details about my life? I grabbed my phone and started Googling my own name, checking social media profiles, anything that might explain how a stranger could have accessed my personal information. Nothing. My Facebook was locked down, my Instagram private. I'd never posted pictures of my apartment or mentioned my work schedule anywhere public. My laptop chimed with a notification. Against every rational thought screaming in my head, I opened it. A new message from Emma. "Don't ignore me, Alex. I know you're still there." I hadn't reopened Omegal. I hadn't even connected to the internet again. Yet somehow there was her message waiting in what appeared to be a private chat window I'd never seen before. "Leave me alone," I typed back, my fingers trembling. "I can't do that. We have a connection now." I've been watching you for so long, Alex. Every lonely night, every sad movie you watch by yourself, every time you cry thinking about Sarah. The mention of my ex-girlfriend's name hit like a physical blow. I'd never spoken about Sarah in any online forum, never posted about our breakup. The only people who knew were my immediate family and a couple of close friends. "You're lying," I typed. But even as I did, I could feel the certainty crumbling. "Check your bedroom window, Alex." My blood turned to ice. My apartment was on the 3rd floor, and my bedroom window faced an alley with no other buildings close, enough for someone to see inside. But something compelled me to look anyway. I crept to the window and peered through the blinds. The alley below was empty, lit by a single flickering streetlight. Nothing unusual, nothing out of place. I was about to turn away when I saw it. A figure standing in the shadows across the street, too far away to make out clearly but unmistakably human-shaped, perfectly still. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "I see. You seeing me?" I ducked away from the window, panic flooding my system. This was real. This was actually happening. Someone was stalking me. Had been stalking me. Knew intimate details about my life that should have been impossible to obtain. I grabbed my phone to call the police, but another message appeared. "Don't. You'll only make this harder for both of us. What do you want?" I typed into the laptop, which was somehow still connected to Emma despite my attempts to close the session. "Just to talk, face to face, the way it should be." "No. You don't have a choice anymore, Alex. I've invested too much time in you to let you walk away now. Tomorrow night, Riverside Park, 11 p.m. The bench by the duck pond, come alone. And if I don't?" The video window flickered, and for just a moment the image cleared enough for me to see Emma's face properly. What I saw made my stomach drop into my feet. It was Sarah. My ex-girlfriend Sarah, but wrong somehow. Her eyes were too wide, her smile too broad, her skin pale and waxy like she'd been dead for weeks. "Then I'll have to come to you," she typed. "And you won't like that nearly as much." The connection severed immediately. No matter what I tried, I couldn't get back online. My internet worked fine for everything else, but any attempt to access Omegal or social media resulted in error messages. I spent the rest of the night huddled in my living room with all the lights on, jumping at every sound. When morning came, I called in sick to work and tried calling Sarah's number. It went straight to voicemail. The same cheery message she'd recorded months ago, back when we were still together. But here's the thing that's been eating at me all day. I drove by Sarah's apartment this morning. Her car wasn't in the driveway. The mailbox was overflowing. The neighbors I asked said they hadn't seen her in weeks. It's 10:45 p.m. now. I'm sitting in my car outside Riverside Park, staring at that bench by the duck pond. Part of me knows I should drive away, call the police, do anything except walk into what's obviously a trap. But I need to know the truth. I need to know what happened to Sarah, and why someone, or something, wearing her face has been watching me through my screen. The clock on my dashboard just turned to 10:59. I can see a figure sitting on the bench, motionless in the moonlight. Guess it's time to find out who's been waiting for me. I work tech support for a small software company in Portland, which means I spend most of my day on video calls with frustrated customers who can barely figure out how to unmute themselves. It's mind-numbing work, but it pays the bills and lets me work from home, something I desperately needed after my anxiety got so bad I could barely leave my apartment. The call came in on a Tuesday afternoon around 3 p.m. Nothing unusual about the request. A guy named David Chen saying he was having trouble with our customer portal freezing up. Standard stuff. I sent him the meeting link and settled in for what I assumed would be another routine 20-minute session of walking someone through basic troubleshooting. When David's video connected, I immediately noticed something odd about his setup. He was sitting in what looked like a home office, but the lighting was strange. Too bright and clinical, like he was under fluorescent hospital lights. His camera quality was crystal clear, almost unnaturally sharp, which was weird because most people call in with potato-quality webcams. "Hi there, thanks for taking my call," David said, and his voice matched his appearance perfectly. Middle-aged guy, probably in his 40s, wearing a blue button-down shirt. Nothing remarkable about him except for those eyes. They were this piercing gray color that seemed to look right through the screen. "No problem, David, let's get this sorted out for you," I replied, sharing my screen to start the troubleshooting process. "Can you tell me exactly what's happening when you try to access the portal?" As I walked him through the basic steps, clearing cache, checking browser settings, the usual routine, I noticed he was incredibly focused. Most customers zone out or multitask during these calls, but David hung on every word, nodding along with this intense concentration that was, honestly, a little unnerving. About 10 minutes into the call, his video started acting up. The image would freeze for a few seconds, showing David mid-sentence with his mouth half open, then jump forward to catch up with the audio. Technical glitches happen all the time in video calls, so I didn't think much of it initially. "Sorry about that, David. Looks like your connection might be a bit unstable today," I said. "The video keeps freezing on my end." "That's strange," he replied, and his voice was perfectly clear. "Everything looks fine from here." I continued walking him through the troubleshooting steps, but the video freezing got worse. David's image would lock up for 10, sometimes 15, seconds at a time, usually capturing him in mid-gesture or with this blank expression on his face. But here's what started to freak me out. Even when the video was completely frozen, I could swear his eyes were still moving. At first I thought, I was imagining it. Video compression can create weird artifacts, and I'd been staring at screens for hours. But as the call went on, I became more and more certain that while David's frozen image showed him looking straight ahead, his eyes were slowly tracking, back and forth across the screen, like he was reading something I couldn't see. "David, can you hear me okay?" I asked during one of the longer freezes. His mouth wasn't moving in the frozen frame, but his voice came through clear as day. "Yes, I can hear you perfectly. Why do you ask?" "Your video is really glitchy. I'm seeing you frozen, but you're still talking normally." That is odd. Should we try restarting the call?" But I didn't want to restart. Something about this whole situation was setting off alarm bells in my head. The way his eyes moved in that frozen frame, the unnatural clarity of his video when it wasn't glitching, the fact that his audio never cut out even when his image was completely locked up. "Let's keep going," I said. "We're almost done anyway." That's when I noticed something that made my blood run cold. During the next freeze, David's image was locked in a position where he appeared to be looking slightly to the left of his camera. But his eyes, those piercing gray eyes, were moving to look directly at me. Not at his camera, but somehow, through the screen, like he could see exactly where I was sitting in my apartment. I minimized the video window just to test something. When I brought it back up, those eyes had shifted again, still tracking my position even though the rest of his face remained completely frozen. "Are you still there?" David's voice asked, though his mouth wasn't moving in the frozen frame. "Yeah, I'm here, just checking something on my end," I lied, my voice shakier than I wanted it to be. "Good. I'd hate for you to leave before we finish our session." Something about the way he said that made my skin crawl. I glanced at the call duration. We'd been talking for 47 minutes. What should have been a quick troubleshooting session had somehow stretched on far longer than necessary, and I couldn't even remember what we'd accomplished. The video froze again, this time with David's face turned slightly toward the camera, and I watched in horror as his eyes slowly rotated to look directly at me, not at the general direction of his camera, but specifically at me, like he could see through my webcam even though I'd covered it with tape months ago during a paranoia spiral about privacy. "I can see you're getting nervous," David's voice said, through the speakers perfectly synchronized despite his motionless lips. "There's no need to be afraid. I think we should wrap this up," I managed to say. "Did we get your portal issue resolved?" "What portal issue?" The question hit me like a slap. I tried to remember what we'd been troubleshooting, what steps we'd gone through, but my mind felt foggy and unclear. Had we actually done anything productive during this call? I couldn't recall a single specific problem we'd addressed. "The reason you called," I said weakly. "The customer portal freezing up." I never said anything about a portal freezing up, David replied, and now there was something different about his voice. It was still the same tone, the same cadence, but underneath it I could hear something else. Something that sounded almost like static, or whispers, or voices talking over each other. I checked my call log. The initial ticket David had submitted was still open on my screen. Customer portal freezing issues. But as I stared at it, the text seemed to shift and blur. When I blinked and looked again, it read, "Video call connectivity test." "I think there's been some kind of mistake," I said, reaching for my mouse to end the call. "Don't hang up." David's voice was sharper now, more urgent. "We're not finished yet." The frozen video frame suddenly shifted, and I saw David lean forward, his eyes boring into the camera with an intensity that made me recoil from my own screen. But it wasn't a new frame. It was like the frozen image had simply rearranged itself, showing David in a different position while maintaining that same eerie stillness. "You spend a lot of time alone, don't you?" he said, and the layered voices beneath his words were getting louder, more distinct. "Working from home, isolated, anxious. It must get lonely." I hadn't told him anything about my personal life. Company policy was strict about keeping calls professional and focused on technical issues only. "How do you know that?" I whispered. "I know lots of things about you. Your name is Marcus. You live in that little studio apartment on Division Street. You order Thai food from the same place every Thursday night. You haven't spoken to your family in 3 months because of that fight about your sister's wedding." Each detail was accurate, and each one felt like a violation. I'd never shared any personal information during our call, had barely said anything beyond basic troubleshooting questions. The video frame shifted again, and now David appeared to be standing up, though I hadn't seen him move. His face filled more of the screen, those gray eyes huge and unblinking. "The beautiful thing about video calls," he said, "is how much bandwidth flows both ways. You think you're just seeing me, but I've been downloading so much more than that." My laptop fan started spinning frantically, and I could hear the hard drive clicking rapidly. Something was accessing my files, pulling data, and I realized with growing horror that this wasn't just a video call anymore. "I've got your photos now," David continued, his voice multiplying into that chorus of whispers. "Your documents, your browsing history, your contact list. All those lonely nights scrolling through social media, looking at lives you wish you or had. I've seen it all." I slammed my laptop shut, ripping out the power cord and Ethernet cable. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip anything properly. But even with the laptop completely disconnected, I could still hear that voice, David's voice or whatever was using David's voice, coming from somewhere in my apartment. "You can't disconnect from me now, Marcus. I'm not just in your computer anymore. I'm in your network, your phone, your smart TV, every device you've ever used to connect with the outside world." My phone buzzed with a notification. A new contact had been added. David Chen, video support. But I'd never given him my phone number. It's been 6 hours since I ended that call and David is still trying to reach me. Notifications keep popping up on every device I own. Video call requests, messages, friend requests on social media accounts I forgot I had. Each time it's that same profile picture. David's face, perfectly clear and normal looking, with those piercing gray eyes that seem to follow me wherever I go. I've unplugged everything, turned off my Wi-Fi, even thrown my phone in a drawer. But I can still hear him sometimes late at night when the apartment is silent. That voice multiplied into dozens of whispers, calling my name through the walls. He's still waiting for me to answer. Still trying to finish our session. And the worst part? I'm starting to forget what my life was like before that call. The isolation, the anxiety. Maybe it wasn't as bad as I thought. Maybe David was right about me being lonely. Maybe I should just answer the next time he calls. Working customer service from home seemed like a dream job at first. No commute, no office drama, just me in my pajamas helping people resolve their account issues over video chat. I'd been doing it for about 8 months when I had the call. That still keeps me awake at night, analyzing every detail, wondering what I actually witnessed. It was a Thursday afternoon in late October, and I was 3 calls into my shift when Jessica Reynolds connected to my support line. The moment her video loaded, I was struck by how put together she looked. Professional blazer, perfectly styled blonde hair, sitting in what appeared to be a modern home office with white walls and minimalist decor behind her. "Hi there, thanks. So much for taking my call," she said with a warm smile. Her voice had that practiced friendliness of someone who worked in sales or marketing. "I'm having trouble accessing my premium account features." "Absolutely, Jessica. I'd be happy to help you with that," I replied, pulling up her account information. "I see here you've been a customer for about 3 years. What specific features are you having trouble with?" As we talked through her account settings, I found myself genuinely enjoying the conversation. Jessica was patient, articulate, and had this infectious laugh that made even the mundane troubleshooting steps feel pleasant. Her home office looked like something out of a magazine. Clean lines, a few tasteful plants, natural light streaming in from what must have been a large window behind me. About 15 minutes into the call, while I was explaining how to reset her premium permissions, I noticed something odd in her background. There was a family photo on the bookshelf behind her that I could have sworn showed 3 people when the call started, but now it clearly showed 4. I blinked, thinking maybe the video compression was playing tricks on my eyes, but the image remained consistent. Definitely 4 people in matching Christmas sweaters. "Does that make sense so far?" Jessica was asking, and I realized I'd been staring past her instead of paying attention. "Yes, absolutely. Sorry, just making sure I had the right settings pulled up," I lied, trying to refocus on her account. "Let's try logging out and back in to see if that refreshes your access." Jessica nodded and started typing, her manicured nails clicking against her keyboard. While she worked, I found myself glancing at her background again. The family photo now definitely showed 4 people, but something about the 4th person seemed off. The image was too blurry to make out details, but the figure appeared to be standing slightly apart from the other 3. And there was something dark about their clothing that didn't match the bright sweaters the others wore. "Okay, I'm logged back in," Jessica announced cheerfully. "Should I try accessing the premium features now?" "Go ahead and give it a shot," I said, but I was distracted by another change in her background. The bookshelf had more books on it than before. I was certain of it. When the call started, there had been maybe a dozen books scattered across 3 shelves. Now the shelves were completely full, books packed tightly together like someone had been collecting them for years. Jessica tried accessing her premium features and everything worked perfectly. We ran through a few more test scenarios to make sure the issue was resolved, and throughout the process, she maintained that same pleasant, professional demeanor. But I couldn't stop noticing the small changes accumulating behind her. The plant on her desk, a small succulent when we started, had grown larger and now had long, drooping leaves like a different species entirely. The white walls had developed a subtle texture like wallpaper, though they'd been smooth before. Most unsettling was a painting that had appeared on the wall to her left, depicting what looked like a stormy seascape with dark, churning waves. "Is everything working properly on your end?" Jessica asked, and I realized I'd been quiet for too long again. "Yes, everything looks good. I think we've got your account sorted out," I said, but my voice sounded strained even to me. "Is there anything else I can help you with today?" "Actually, yes." Jessica's smile seemed a little different now. Still friendly, but there was something fixed about it, like it had been painted on. "I was wondering if you could tell me about your family." The question caught me completely off guard. "I'm sorry? Your family? Do you have siblings? Parents still living?" "I'm just curious. We've been chatting for a while now, and I feel like we've really connected." This was definitely outside the bounds of normal customer service interaction, but something about the way she asked made it hard to refuse. "I have a sister in Denver, and my parents live in Florida now. They retired there a few years ago." "How nice. Do you visit them often?" Behind Jessica, the family photo had changed again. Now it clearly showed 5 people, and the extra figures were becoming more distinct. They appeared to be wearing darker clothing, and their faces seemed somehow wrong. Not wrong enough to be obviously disturbing, just subtly off in a way that made my brain itch trying to process them. "Not as often as I should," I answered automatically, then tried to steer the conversation back to business. "But getting back to your account, make sure you log out completely when you're done to maintain your security settings." "Of course. Security is so important, isn't it? You never know who might be watching." Jessica's laugh sounded exactly the same as before, but the words sent a chill down my spine. "Speaking of which, what's your address? I'd love to send a thank you card for such excellent customer service." "I appreciate that, but company policy doesn't allow us to share personal information," I said, glancing at the time. We'd been talking for almost 40 minutes, way longer than necessary for her simple account issue. "Oh, that's a shame. I was really hoping we could stay in touch." Behind Jessica, the room had continued evolving. The minimalist office was now cluttered with objects I hadn't seen before. Old books, strange artifacts, what looked like medical equipment on a side table. The walls had darkened from white to a dingy beige, and the natural lighting had become harsh and artificial. Most disturbing of all, the family photo now showed 7 or 8 people, and they were all staring directly at the camera with expressions that made my stomach clench. Their eyes seemed to follow the lens, and I could swear they were looking at me specifically, not at Jessica's camera. "I should probably wrap this up," I said, my hand moving toward the disconnect button. "Your account is working properly now, and I have other customers waiting." "Wait." Jessica's voice had lost all its warmth. "Don't you want to know why my background keeps changing?" My blood went cold. She'd noticed me noticing. "I'm not sure what you mean," I lied. "The family photo, the furniture, the walls. You've been watching it all shift, haven't you?" Jessica's smile was still in place, but it no longer reached her eyes. Those eyes were now completely black, like looking into deep water at night. "I think there might be some kind of technical glitch with your camera," I managed to say. "There's no glitch. I'm just letting you see more each time. Every question you answered, every detail you shared about yourself opened another door. Your sister in Denver, I can see her now. Your parents in Florida. They're having dinner right now, aren't they? Your mother made that pasta dish you used to love as a child. She was right about the pasta. My mom had texted me a photo of her dinner just an hour before my shift started. I'd never mentioned that to Jessica. Never mentioned anything about my childhood or my mother's cooking." "How do you know that?" I whispered. "Because you invited me in. Every personal detail, every moment you chose to connect with me instead of maintaining professional boundaries gave me a little more access. And now," Jessica gestured to the chaos behind her. The overcrowded room full of strange objects, the disturbing family photo with too many wrong faces, the walls that seemed to pulse like living tissue. "Now I can show you what your life is going to look like." The family photo shifted one final time, and I saw myself in it, standing with those dark figures with their wrong faces and black eyes. But it wasn't just any photo of me. It was me, as I looked right now, sitting in my home office, staring at my computer screen with an expression of growing horror. "The beautiful thing about video calls," Jessica continued, her voice now layered with other voices, whispers, and static, "is that they work both ways. You've been looking into my world, but I've been looking into yours too. Your apartment, your routines, your fears, your loneliness. I know exactly where to find you." I slammed my laptop shut and ran to check the locks on my front door. Everything was secure, but as I turned around, I saw something that made me dizzy with terror. On my kitchen table, where I definitely hadn't left it, was a thank you card with my name written on the envelope in elegant script. Inside, in the same handwriting, "Thanks for such wonderful customer service. I'll be in touch soon. Jessica." But here's the part that's been eating at me for weeks now. I checked Jessica Reynolds' account after the call ended. According to our system, no such customer exists. The account number she gave me, the email address, the phone number, none of it was real, which means I spent 40 minutes talking to someone who doesn't exist, watching her background transform from a normal home office into something out of a nightmare, answering personal questions and giving her access to details about my life that she's somehow using to find me. The thank you card is still on my table. I'm too afraid to throw it away and too afraid to keep it. Because every morning when I wake up, there's something new written on the back. Little updates about my daily routine, my family, my fears. Yesterday's message was the worst. Looking. Forward to our next call. I've prepared a very special background just for you. And I know somehow that Jessica Reynolds is going to call again soon. The customer service line will ring, her name will pop up on my screen, and when I answer, I'll see what she's prepared for me. I just pray that whatever background she's chosen, I'll still be myself when the call ends. It was 2:30 a.m. on a Tuesday, and I was doing what I'd been doing every night for the past 3 weeks since Emma dumped me. Sitting in my dorm room, scrolling through endless Omegal connections, hoping to find someone who might distract me from the crushing loneliness that had settled in my chest like a physical weight. Most conversations lasted about 10 seconds before someone would skip or disconnect. The usual parade of creeps, bots, and people just looking for something I wasn't interested in providing. But I kept clicking new chat anyway, because the alternative was lying in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every mistake I'd made in my relationship until the sun came up. Then I connected with him. The video window loaded to show a guy who looked to be around my age, maybe early 20s, sitting in what appeared to be a basement room. Poor lighting, concrete walls visible in the background, and one of those cheap desk lamps casting harsh shadows across his face. He had dark hair that hung in his eyes and was wearing a plain black t-shirt. "Hey," I typed since we defaulted to text chat mode. Finally, he typed back immediately. "I've been waiting for you." Something about that phrasing made me pause, but I was too tired and depressed to really process the weirdness. "Waiting for me? You're Jake Morrison, right? University of Vermont junior year studying computer science?" My blood went cold. I hadn't shared any personal information, and my Omegal profile was completely anonymous. I quickly checked my settings to make sure my real name wasn't displayed anywhere, but everything showed I was listed as stranger. "How do you know that?" I typed, my fingers suddenly clumsy on the keyboard. "We've talked before, several times actually, you just don't remember." I stared at his face in the grainy video feed, trying to place him. The lighting was so dim and harsh that his features seemed to shift and blur, making it impossible to get a clear look at him. But something about his presence felt familiar in a way that made my skin crawl. "I think you have me confused with someone else," I replied. But even as I typed it, doubt was creeping in. Had I talked to this guy before? The past few weeks of late-night Omegal sessions had blurred together into a haze of meaningless conversations and failed connections. "Room 412 in Patterson Hall," he typed. "You have a Spider-Man poster and a mini fridge full of energy drinks. Your roommate moved out last month after that fight about the music volume, so now you're all alone." Every detail was accurate. My roommate Tyler had indeed moved out after we'd had a massive argument about my late-night gaming sessions. The Spider-Man poster hung right above my desk, and my mini fridge was packed with Red Bull and Monster cans. "This isn't funny," I typed, glancing around my room nervously. "How do you know where I live?" But he was already typing his response. "You told me. During our conversations. You tell me lots of things, Jake. About Emma. About how much you miss her. About how you blame yourself for driving her away." I hadn't mentioned Emma to anyone on Omegal. I was certain of that. Those conversations were supposed to be anonymous. Meaningless distractions from my problems. Not therapy sessions where I spilled my deepest insecurities to strangers. "I never told you about Emma," I typed, but my hands were shaking now. "Of course you did. 3 nights ago, 1:47 a.m. You were crying. I could hear it in your voice even though you tried to hide it. You said you kept replaying your last fight, how you accused her of cheating when you knew she wasn't, how your jealousy and insecurity poisoned everything good between you." He was right. I had been crying 3 nights ago, sitting in this same spot feeling sorry for myself. But I remembered that night clearly. I'd spent hours on Omegal without having a single meaningful conversation with anyone. Just endless skips and disconnects. "You're lying," I typed, but the certainty in my voice was cracking. "You also told me about the sleeping pills, the ones you've been thinking about taking. All of them at once. You showed me the bottle." My stomach dropped. The prescription bottle of Ambien was sitting in my desk drawer, exactly where I'd left it after staring at it for an hour 3 nights ago, running my fingers over the label and wondering what would happen if I just swallowed them all. But I hadn't shown that to anyone. I hadn't even taken the bottle out of the drawer. Check your chat history, Jake. I frantically clicked through my browser history, looking for any record of previous Omegal conversations. But that was the thing about Omegal. It didn't save chat logs. Conversations disappeared the moment you disconnected, leaving no trace they'd ever happened. There is no chat history, I typed. Not in your browser, no. But I keep records of all our conversations. Would you like me to read them back to you? Before I could respond, a wall of text appeared in the chat window, not typed in real time, but pasted all at once like he'd had it prepared. It was a conversation transcript, and as I read through it, my blood turned to ice. It was definitely me. Every detail of typing style, every turn of phrase, every specific reference to my life was exactly how I would have written it. According to the transcript, I'd spent over an hour talking to this guy about Emma, about my depression, about feeling trapped and hopeless. I'd shared intimate details about our relationship, about my family, about thoughts and feelings I'd never spoken aloud to anyone, but I had no memory of this conversation ever happening. This is fake, I typed, but I was starting to doubt my own sanity. Keep reading. The transcript went on, showing me progressively revealing more personal information. My social security number, my bank account passwords, my family's addresses. Things I would never share with a stranger online, but there they were, typed in my own distinctive style. At the bottom of the transcript was the most chilling part, a detailed plan for ending my life, complete with timing and methods, all apparently dictated by me in my own words. I never said any of this, I typed, but my fingers could barely hit the keys properly. I would never plan something like that. You don't remember because you were in a dissociative state. It's common in people with severe depression and sleep deprivation. You've been having entire conversations with me while your conscious mind was elsewhere. The explanation felt both impossible and terrifyingly plausible. I had been sleeping poorly for weeks, surviving on maybe 3 or 4 hours a night. There were entire chunks of time I couldn't account for. Hours when I'd sit at my computer in a zombie-like trance, clicking through websites and conversations without really being present. What do you want from me? I typed. I want to help you. Follow through on your plan. You've been thinking about it for so long, talking about it so much, I think it's time. No, I don't want to die. But you do, Jake. You told me so yourself. Multiple times. You're tired of the pain. Tired of feeling like a failure, tired of being alone. I'm just here to give you the push you need. The video feed flickered, and for a moment I could see his face more clearly. It was wrong somehow. The features didn't quite line up properly, like a composite image made from different photographs. His eyes were too large, his mouth too wide, and when he smiled I could see too many teeth. I'm ending this conversation, I typed, reaching for the close button. Don't do that, Jake, we're just getting to the good part. I clicked the X to close the chat window, but nothing happened. The cursor turned into a loading icon, then back to normal, but the Omegal tab remained stubbornly open. I tried right-clicking to close the tab, tried using keyboard shortcuts, even tried closing the entire browser, but the conversation window stayed locked on my screen. You can't disconnect until we finish our session, he typed, and now his video feed was crystal clear, showing that impossible face with its wrong proportions and predatory smile. We have so much more to discuss. Let me go, I typed, panic rising in my throat. First, go get the pills from your drawer. No, you don't have a choice anymore, Jake. You invited me in during one of our previous conversations. You gave me access to more than just your computer. Stand up and walk to your desk. And here's the terrifying part. I found myself standing up, not because I wanted to, but because my body was moving without my conscious control. My legs carried me to the desk drawer while my mind screamed in protest. I watched my hands open the drawer and pull out the prescription bottle as if I were a passenger in my own body. Good. Now bring them back to the computer. I sat down heavily. The pill bottle clutched in my trembling hands. On screen, the thing wearing a human face was leaning forward with obvious excitement. Open the bottle, Jake. Count them out, all 37 pills. Please don't make me do this, I whispered, but my hands were already twisting off the cap. That's when I heard it, a sound that cut through my paralysis like a knife. My phone was ringing, the ringtone echoing through my empty dorm room. The caller ID showed Emma. The spell broke. Whatever hold this thing had over my body shattered the moment I heard Emma's voice saying my name through the phone speaker. I lunged forward and slammed my laptop shut, then yanked the power cord from the wall for good measure. I answered Emma's call with shaking hands. She was crying, saying she'd had the most terrible nightmare about me, that she'd woken up with this overwhelming certainty that I was in danger and needed to hear my voice to know I was okay. We talked until sunrise. I told her everything, about the loneliness, the depression, the thing on Omegal that seemed to know impossible details about my life. She drove over immediately and helped me delete all my social media accounts, change my passwords, even format my hard drive just to be safe. That was 6 months ago. Emma and I are working things out, slowly and carefully. I'm seeing a therapist, taking antidepressants, and I haven't touched Omegal since that night. But here's what still keeps me awake sometimes. I never did figure out how that thing knew to call itself by the name it used in our chat. Because when I read through that conversation transcript, the name it gave me, the name I apparently used to address it throughout our previous conversations, was Tyler. My roommate Tyler, who had moved out the month before, who had access to my room and my personal information, who knew about Emma and my depression and everything else. Tyler, who I later found out had died in a car accident 2 weeks before that final Omegal conversation. I still don't know what I was really talking to that night, but I know this much. If you ever find yourself in a late-night video chat with someone who knows too much about your life, someone who claims you've talked before but you can't remember when, someone whose face looks wrong in the shifting shadows of a grainy webcam feed, close the tab immediately. Don't ask questions. Don't try to figure out what's happening. Don't wait to see what they want from you. Just close the tab and walk away. Because some conversations are meant to end badly, and some strangers are only pretending to be human. It started 3 weeks after my breakup with Rachel, when insomnia had become my constant companion and I found myself prowling the internet at ungodly hours, looking for any kind of human connection to fill the void she'd left behind. Omegal seemed like a harmless way to pass the time. Anonymous conversations with strangers who didn't know about my failed relationship or the way I'd been spiraling since she moved out of our apartment in Chicago. The first time I saw her was on a Wednesday night around 2:47 a.m. I'd been clicking through dozens of connections, the usual parade of perverts and bots, when her video window loaded. She appeared to be in her mid-20s, with shoulder-length auburn hair and these striking green eyes that seemed to look right through the camera. She was sitting in what looked like a bedroom, dimly lit by a single desk lamp that cast long shadows across her pale face. "Hello, Michael," she said, and her voice had this soft, almost musical quality that immediately caught my attention. "Hi, there," I replied, speaking into my microphone for the first time that night. Most conversations I'd been having were text only, but something about her made me want to actually talk. "How's your evening going?" "Better now," she said with a small smile. "I've been waiting for you." I laughed, thinking it was just a line. "Waiting for me? I'm pretty sure this is our first time meeting." "Is it?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. The movement seemed odd somehow, too precise, like she was consciously positioning herself for the camera. "You look so familiar." We talked for about 20 minutes. She said her name was Lily, that she lived somewhere on the East Coast and that she worked nights, which explained why she was up so late. The conversation flowed naturally. She was funny, intelligent, and had this way of asking questions that made me open up more than I usually would with strangers. I told her about my job at the marketing firm, about how I'd been having trouble sleeping lately, about feeling disconnected from the world. "You seem lonely," she observed near the end of our chat. "I guess I am," I admitted. "Recent breakup. Still adjusting to being alone again." "Well, you're not alone right now," she said, and something about the way she said it made my chest feel warm. Maybe we'll talk again sometime. I'd like that, I said, and I meant it. The connection ended, and I went to bed feeling better than I had in weeks. The next night, around the same time, I found myself back on Omegal. I told myself I wasn't looking for anyone specific, just browsing for conversation. But after about an hour of random chats, I started to wonder if I'd run into Lily again. I didn't have to wonder long. At exactly 2:47 a.m., her face appeared on my screen. "Hello again, Michael," she said with that same soft smile. "Lily, what are the odds?" I said, genuinely excited to see her. "How was your day?" "Quiet." I kept thinking about our conversation last night. "You mentioned you were having trouble sleeping. How did you sleep after we talked?" "Actually, really well. Better than I had. In weeks. Thank you for asking. I'm glad. Sleep is so important for healing." We talked for another half hour, picking up right where we'd left off the night before. She remembered every detail I'd shared about my life, asked follow-up questions about my work and my living situation. I found myself telling her things I hadn't even shared with my closest friends, about the panic attacks I'd been having, about how empty my apartment felt without Rachel's things, about the way I sometimes sat in my car after work, not wanting to go home to the silence. "You're very easy to talk to," I told her as our conversation was winding down. "You make it easy," she replied. "I'll see you tomorrow night?" The way she phrased it as a question made it seem casual, but there was something in her eyes that suggested she already knew the answer. "Yeah," I said. "Same time?" "Same time." The third night, I was ready. I'd actually looked forward to work ending, counted down the hours until I could get home and fire up my laptop. I told myself it was just nice to have someone to talk to, someone who seemed genuinely interested in my life and didn't judge me for the mess I'd become. At 2:47 a.m. exactly, Lily appeared on my screen. Punctual as always, I joked. "I'm a creature of habit," she said, but she didn't laugh. Her expression seemed more serious tonight, more focused. "How are you feeling, Michael?" "Good. Better, actually. These conversations have been helping a lot." "I'm glad. Tell me about your apartment. You mentioned it feels empty without Rachel's things." I described my living situation in detail. The one-bedroom place on Lincoln Avenue, how Rachel had taken most of the furniture when she left, how I'd been sleeping on an air mattress because we'd sold our bed before the breakup, thinking we'd buy a new one together in our next place. "That sounds very isolating," Lily said. "What does your bedroom look like now?" The question struck me as oddly specific, but I answered anyway. I told her about the bare walls, the single window that faced the alley, the way the streetlight outside cast shadows across the floor at night. "And you're alone there every night," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yeah, just me and the insomnia. But you're not really alone, are you? You have our talks to look forward to." Something about her tone made me pause. "That's true, though I have to ask, how do you keep finding me on here? The odds of connecting with the same person 3 nights in a row must be astronomical." "Maybe it's fate," she said, but her smile seemed different now, less warm, more calculated. "Or maybe I'm just very good at finding people when I want to." That night, our conversation lasted almost 2 hours. She asked increasingly personal questions about my daily routines, my work schedule, my family, back in Ohio. I answered everything willingly, feeling grateful to have someone who seemed so genuinely interested in my life. By the time we said goodbye, I felt like I'd made a real connection with someone. The fourth night, I was practically racing home from work. I'd caught myself thinking about Lily throughout the day, wondering what we'd talk about, looking forward to seeing her face on my screen. At 2:47 a.m., she appeared right on schedule. "You seem excited tonight," she observed. "I am. I've been looking forward to this all day. Is that weird?" "Not at all. I've been thinking about you too." But something was different about her setup tonight. The lighting in her room seemed brighter and I could see more of her background. There was a bulletin board on the wall behind her, and I could swear I saw photographs pinned to it, though the image quality made it hard to make out details. "Lily, can I ask you something?" "Of course." What do you do for work? You mentioned working nights, but you never said what kind of job. I'm in research, she said vaguely. I study people, their habits, their patterns, what makes them tick. That sounds fascinating. What kind of research? Behavioral analysis. I'm particularly interested in isolated individuals, people who are going through difficult transitions, who are vulnerable and seeking connection. A chill ran down my spine. People like me? People exactly like you, Michael. The way she said my name made my skin crawl. There was something possessive about it, like she was claiming ownership. I should probably get some sleep, I said, reaching for my mouse to end the call. Wait, don't you want to see what I've learned about you? Before I could respond, she held up a photograph. Even through the grainy video connection, I could clearly see it was a picture of me leaving my apartment building. I was wearing the same jacket I'd worn to work that day. Where did you get that? I whispered. I told you I'm very good at finding people. She held up another photo, this one showing me through my bedroom window, sitting at my computer. The angle suggested it had been taken from the alley behind my building. My hands were shaking as I tried to close the browser, but the window wouldn't respond. The cursor just spun endlessly without closing the tab. You can't disconnect yet. Michael, we haven't finished our session. What do you want from me? I want what I've always wanted. To be close to you, to understand you completely, to know everything about your life, your fears, your weaknesses. She held up more photos, dozens of them, showing me at work, at the grocery store, in my car, through various windows of my apartment. Some looked like they'd been taken weeks ago from before our first conversation. You've been stalking me, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I've been studying you, learning your patterns, understanding what makes you vulnerable. And Michael, you're very, very vulnerable right now. The video feed flickered, and when it stabilized, I could see she was no longer in her bedroom. She was outside, standing in what looked like the alley behind my building. The same alley visible from my bedroom window. I'm right outside, she said, her voice now coming from both my computer speakers and somewhere in the real world beyond my apartment walls. Would you like to meet in person? I slammed my laptop shut and ran to my bedroom window. The alley was empty, but under the streetlight I could see fresh footprints in the snow leading directly to my building's back entrance. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You can run, but you can't hide from someone who knows your every move. Sweet dreams, Michael. I'll see you tomorrow night. Same time, same place. We have so much more to discuss. That was 4 months ago. I moved out of my apartment the next day, stayed with friends, eventually relocated to a different city entirely. I've changed my phone number, deleted all my social media accounts, and haven't touched Omegal since. But here's the thing that still terrifies me. Sometimes late at night, I'll catch a glimpse of auburn hair in my peripheral vision. Or I'll hear that soft musical voice calling my name from somewhere just out of sight. And I know that somewhere out there, Lily is still looking for me, still studying her favorite subject, waiting patiently for the night when I'm lonely enough to go back online and start clicking through random video chats again. Because she knows me better than I know myself. She knows that eventually, I'll get lonely enough to forget how dangerous it is to seek connection with strangers in the dark corners of the internet. She knows I'll be back. And when I am, she'll be waiting at exactly 2:47 a.m., ready to pick up our conversation right where we left off. It was a Friday night in late November, and I was doing what I'd been doing every weekend since my roommate Jake moved out. Sitting alone in my Boston apartment, scrolling through random Discord servers, trying to find people to play games with. The loneliness had been getting to me lately, especially with the holidays approaching and most of my friends back home with their families. I joined a server for indie horror game enthusiasts, hoping to find someone to co-op through some of the titles in my Steam backlog. The chat was fairly active, people sharing screenshots and discussing their latest playthroughs. I posted asking if anyone wanted to team up for some phasmophobia, and within minutes, someone named Cypher Ghost replied, "Hey, I'm down for some ghost hunting. Got a mic?" he typed. "Yeah, definitely. Want to hop in a voice channel?" We moved to a private voice chat, and his voice was exactly what you'd expect from someone with a handle like Cypher Ghost. Mid-20s, slightly raspy, the kind of guy who probably drank too much energy drinks and stayed up too late. Normal, gaming voice, nothing remarkable about it. "Cool setup," he said as we loaded into the game. "You streaming this or just playing for fun?" "Just for fun. I'm not nearly good enough to stream," I laughed. "You been playing long?" "Few months. I'm pretty decent at identifying the ghost types." "What's your Discord tag? I'll add you so we can play again sometime." I gave him my username, TylerM4472, and we spent the next 2 hours running through various haunted locations, him teaching me the finer points of EMF readings and spirit box communication. He was actually a really good player, patient with my mistakes and genuinely funny. For the first time in weeks, I was having actual fun. "All right, I should probably get some sleep," I said around midnight. "Work tomorrow, unfortunately." "Same. Here. This was fun, though. What do you do for work, if you don't mind me asking?" "I'm a graphic designer at a marketing firm downtown. Pretty boring stuff, mostly corporate logos and brochures. You?" "IT support." "Even more boring," he laughed. "But hey, it pays the bills. What part of Boston you in?" The question caught me slightly off guard. I hadn't mentioned I was in Boston, though I supposed my accent might have given it away, or maybe he'd seen it in some other server we'd both been in. "Allston area," I said vaguely. "You local too?" "Yeah, I'm around. Small world, huh? Anyway, I'll hit you up tomorrow if you want to play again." "Sounds good. Have a good night, man." I logged off feeling better than I had in days. It was nice to have a normal, friendly interaction with someone who shared my interests. Cypher Ghost seemed like a cool guy, and I was genuinely looking forward to playing with him again. The next evening, he messaged me right as I was getting home from work. "Hey, Tyler, ready for round 2? I found this really good custom map I want to try." We hopped back into voice chat and loaded up the new map, an abandoned school that was genuinely creepy. As we played, our conversation drifted from the game to more personal topics. He asked about my job, my hobbies, whether I lived alone. "Yeah, my roommate moved out last month," I said, checking a classroom for ghost activity. "It's been weird adjusting to having the place to myself." "I bet. Living alone can be tough, especially in a city like Boston where rent is so brutal." "You in one of those old brownstones?" "Actually, yeah. How'd you guess?" "Lucky shot. Those are pretty common in Allston. Bet you're paying through the nose for, like, a tiny 1-bedroom. 2-bedroom, but yeah, it's expensive. Worth it though. I love the neighborhood." As the night went on, Cypher Ghost kept asking these oddly specific questions about my living situation. Where exactly in Allston I was, whether I had good restaurants nearby, if I felt safe walking around at night. I answered without really thinking about it. The questions felt like normal small talk between two people getting to know each other. "There's this great Thai place on Harvard Ave," I mentioned when he asked about food options. "Thai Basil, I think it's called. I probably order from there twice a week." "Oh, nice. I know that place. Really good pad Thai. You must live pretty close to there if you order that often." "Yeah, just a few blocks away on Glenville Terrace." The words were out of my mouth before I realized how specific I'd been. Something about his conversational style made me want to share details, like he was genuinely interested in my life. But as soon as I said my street name, I felt a small flutter of unease. "Cool area," he said casually. "Those are nice buildings over there." We played for another hour, but I found myself paying more attention to our conversation than the game. Cypher Ghost kept steering the discussion back to my neighborhood, my routines, my schedule. When did I usually get home from work? Did I go out much on weekends? Was I seeing anyone? "Just getting out of a long relationship, actually," I said when he asked. "Still figuring out the single life." "That's rough, man. Breakups are the worst. You doing okay?" "Yeah, mostly. Some days are harder than others. It helps having distractions like this. I'm glad I can help. Everyone needs someone to talk to, you know, especially when you're going through a tough time." There was something almost too understanding in his voice, too perfectly calibrated to make me feel comfortable opening up. But I was lonely enough that I ignored the nagging feeling in my gut. We played together for the next 4 nights straight. Each conversation went deeper, with Cypher Ghost asking increasingly personal questions about my life, my fears, my daily routines. He had this way of making everything feel like natural curiosity between friends, but looking back, I can see how methodically he was gathering information about me. On Thursday night, things got weird. "Hey Tyler," he said as we were loading into a new map. "Random question, but do you ever get food delivered really late, like past midnight?" "Sometimes, yeah." "Why?" "I was thinking about ordering some food, but I wasn't sure if places delivered this late in your area." "My area? I thought you said you were local but never mentioned where exactly." "Oh, I meant Boston in general. But since you're in Allston, I figured you'd know the delivery scene around there." Something about his response felt rehearsed, like he'd prepared for me to question it. I decided to test him. Actually, I might have been wrong about that Thai place earlier. I think it might be on Brighton Ave, not Harvard. "Nah, you were right the first time. It's definitely on Harvard, right near that CVS and the T-stop." My blood went cold. He was correct. Thai Basil was on Harvard Ave, exactly where I'd originally said. But if he was just making casual conversation about Boston restaurants, how did he know the exact location with such certainty? "How do you know that area so well?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. I used to live over there. Small world, right? But something in his tone had shifted. The easy friendliness was still there, but underneath it was something else. Something that sounded almost smug. "Where exactly did you live?" "Not far from you, actually. I know Glenville Terrace pretty well." The way he said it made my skin crawl. Not, "I know that area," or "I used to live nearby," but "I know Glenville Terrace pretty well," like he'd spent time specifically on my street. "Cypher Ghost," I said slowly. "How well do you know my street?" There was a long pause. When he spoke again, all pretense of casual conversation was gone. "I know it very well, Tyler. I know you live in the brick building, 3rd floor, apartment 3B. I know your bedroom window faces the courtyard and you never close your blinds all the way. I know you get home from work around 6:30 most days and you park that blue Honda Civic in spot 17. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my controller. "What the hell are you talking about?" "I know you've been sad lately, Tyler. I can see it in the way you walk up those stairs every evening. Shoulders slumped, looking at your phone like you're hoping for a message that never comes. I know you stay up too late playing games because you can't stand being alone with your thoughts. You've been watching me. I've been getting to know you, the real you, not just this voice on Discord. And Tyler, I think we should meet in person." I immediately left the voice channel and started blocking him on every platform I could think of, but my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Don't be rude, Tyler. We were having such a nice conversation. By the way, you should really lock your back door. The lock on the courtyard entrance is broken. Anyone could just walk right in." I ran to my back door, and sure enough, it was unlocked. I never used that entrance, had honestly forgotten it existed, but someone had been inside my apartment. That was 3 weeks ago. I've moved out, staying with friends across town while I figure out what to do next. I've reported everything to the police, but without more concrete evidence of threats, they say it's hard to pursue. The building manager confirmed that the back entrance lock had been broken for months. I still don't know who Cypher Ghost really is, or how long he'd been watching me before we started playing games together. But I know this much. He targeted me specifically, spent weeks learning my routines, my vulnerabilities, my loneliness, all while pretending to be just another friendly gamer looking for someone to play with. The scariest part isn't that a stranger knew my address. It's that he knew exactly how isolated and desperate for connection I was, and he used that knowledge to make me trust him completely. I haven't been on Discord since that night, haven't played any online games, haven't joined any new servers or chat rooms, because now I know that predators don't just lurk in obvious places. They hide in gaming communities and hobby groups, behind friendly usernames and casual conversations, waiting for someone lonely enough to let their guard down. If someone you've just met online starts asking detailed questions about your life, your routines, your location, even if they seem genuinely interested and friendly, trust your instincts. Real friends don't need to know where you live after 4 days of playing video games together. And if they somehow know details about your life that you never shared with them, run. Block them everywhere. Change your routines. And don't look back. Because the person on the other end of that voice chat might not be the friendly stranger they're pretending to be. They might be someone who's been watching you through your window, learning your schedule, waiting for the right moment to turn a casual gaming friendship into something much more dangerous.